Good morning, folks. This is Tim Kendrick with Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty AZ, and I'm with my friend Tom from Hidden Places Home Inspections. We've used Tom for several different inspections over the years, and he's kind of our go-to guy for inspection questions. So we thought we'd bring him in here and have him tell us what he does, why he does it, who he does it to, and just get into a general discussion of what you should look for. This is something that's real important, I think, for home buyers. We get a lot of folks that will kind of question why they should spend the money on a home inspection and things like that. And it's so important to us that I kick and scream and hold my breath and throw myself on the floor if they don't do it. And then I make them sign a piece of paper that says, we told you, and if you didn't do it, it's your problem. So so tell me a little bit about what, from an inspector's point of view, exactly why you think they need to have a home inspection.
Well, Tim, let me start out by saying I've been doing this for about 12 years.
Okay.
So I've seen people get home inspections. I've seen them not get home inspections. I've been called after they didn't get it, seeking my advice and recommendations. And I think overall, for the small amount of money, and we can talk about money later, but the small amount of money that it actually costs to get a home inspection is probably or potentially going to save you thousands in the long run. Now, if it doesn't save you money actually finding derogatory or bad stuff about the house, what it typically does, it gives you information.
Right.
Okay. Where's my water shut off? What are you going to do if there's a leak under the sink and you're trying to shut the water off? If you don't know where that's at, my report tells you things of that. It tells you where the electric panels are and where to find it and what to do and how to shut off a breaker if something was to go bad.
Right.
Now, it's also going to find things that have been installed incorrectly,
right,
that have maybe worn out or are reaching the end of their life expectancy. And we want to include things like that.
Right.
A lot of people think it's just simply a big long punch list of you got to fix, you got to fix, you got to fix. And one of the things that I make very clear to both seller and buyer, I'm not here to tell you that you have to fix anything.
Right.
I'm here to give you enough information that you should be able to make an informed decision, get together with your real estate agents, talk about what's really important, what needs to be done, because I don't get involved with, is it worth it to put this in? Is it not worth it? And I certainly don't get involved with what you paid or didn't pay or good deal or bad deal on the house. Information, you guys make a decision.
Right. And for those of you that may not know, the state of Arizona has a form that we fill out, buyer's inspection notice. I always mess this up.
Residential buyer's inspection notice and seller's response.
My wife in the background is telling me what to say. Buyer inspection.
Residential.
Okay, just go ahead. Say it again.
Residential buyer's inspection notice and seller's response.
What she said. Okay, so when we fill this out, what we do is we sit down with the buyer and we go through your inspection and we look at all the items that have been noted on the inspection form, and we decide what the buyer may or may not want fixed. And then we have that discussion with the listing agent,
Exactly.
the seller, and the buyer. And if we're listing the property, we get that from the buyer's agent, and we sit down and have that discussion with the seller, and we come to some kind of an agreement as to what they are going to agree to fix, not fix, so on and so forth. But either way it goes, it tells the buyer any potential issues, and it tells the seller stuff that they may not even know about their own house.
Exactly.
And that's where this becomes so important.
Exactly. And one of the things that I ask for up front is I ask for that buyer's
inspection notice and seller's response.
Yeah.
Binzer.
Binzer, there you
Binzer.
go.
We call it a Binzer.
That's the one I
We
was
use a lot of
looking
acronyms in this business.
Exactly.
But we get the Binzer, okay? We look that over. Have you done any repairs on your roof, your plumbing, electrical? We like to kind of have an idea. Has the house ever been flooded and then repaired? Because things that have been repaired, it's difficult to see. But if we know that it's been flooded, we might want to look a little deeper into certain areas. If we know the house is, caught fire and partially burned, or maybe even down to the slab, okay? We want to know those things before we start our inspection because it directs us, or it gives us a lead on what to look for while we're doing our inspection.
Yeah. We've actually sold some houses that have been burned.
Yeah.
So that can turn into a thing. So,
Mhm.
so I know that you told me there's 11 or 12 systems that you generally look at
Correct.
when you're doing your
Correct.
inspection. So let's run through those.
Okay.
And just kind of, I got a list up here for those of you that are wondering why I'm looking back past the hammer here. So we have 11 areas.
Mhm.
We will start with the grounds.
Sure. Okay. When I get to the house, I'm kind of panning the area. I'm looking for trip hazards. I'm looking for locations of where your panels are. What's the exterior walls? So the first thing I typically do is I find the water source. Where's the water come in at on this house? Is it out by the curb? Is it around back in an alley? So we want to note that first. Okay. From that point, I do what we call a wall hug. And we go through the exterior walls and we literally walk the walls up and down, up and down. And as we come to certain items, that's where we document it in a report.
Right.
For example, I may come to the electric panel first. Okay, that's now going to get inspected. We're going to open up the panel. We're going to do a complete inspection. We're going to move on. We're looking for cracks. We're looking for any deterioration, moisture stains, rot around the eaves. And we'll do the entire exterior like that. We're also looking for drainage issues. We want to look at from the foundation and see that the properly drains away from the foundation. If we've got ponding water up near the foundation, it's going to start to attract termites. It's going to cause the weeping effect to weep up the walls, chip, crack, and peel paint. That's primarily the exterior. It's not 100%, but it gives you a rough idea of what we did.
Right. Yeah. We bought a house just recently that has a drainage issue, and we knew what it was going in, and it had gotten so bad over the years that the rebar inside the footings has expanded and cracked that foundation. So we were able to buy it, and we're in the process of getting that fixed. But that's one of the things that obviously got noted on the home inspection. So that's the grounds, and then we covered the exterior a little bit. So structural issues.
Structural issues. Primarily, we're looking for something major. Okay. Now, obviously, when they build the structure and there's no stucco, there's no drywall, you can look at all that framing. But the best we're going to be able to do as far as framing is probably to see it from the attic, or we're looking at major cracks, something you can stick a nickel or so in. Okay. We're looking especially around spider cracks around windows to make sure the walls aren't moving. The foundation's not moving. The soil around the house is not moving. That's what we're looking for on the exterior.
Okay. And next item would be we just talked structural. Okay. The garage.
We want to go in the garage, and we want to make sure that first of all there's access. There's what type of door is it? What type of openers? Is there what we call a man door that goes from the house to the garage? We want to make sure those doors are self-closing, self-latching. If there's a door that runs from the garage to the exterior, we want to check that for weather stripping, locks, things of that nature. The other unique thing that I find in garages are people that want to store their stuff from the ceiling, okay? And honestly, those trusses, when you talk about structure and stuff, now we're back to the structure, okay? The structure of that house is not designed to hold additional weight. So if you want to put your 4 or 5 bags of golf clubs up there, it's probably too much. You're probably going to cause the ceiling to sag, and you're going to have a structural damage, not because the house is bad, it's just the way the house has been used.
Okay, that's good. I didn't know that. So I know that I've had some people talk to me in the past about garages with the fire barrier. I know that's why the garage doors are supposed to automatically close.
Exactly.
And stuff.
Exactly.
I see a lot of garages that have crawl space access in there. So
once you cut the drywall, you have now violated the fire barrier. Okay. And what's going to happen, or potentially happen, is if you park a car in there and it catches on fire, or if you've got a car that's running with the exhaust, you've got all that carbon monoxide, now it has access to the attic and then can easily spread throughout the house. And if it gets into the attic and spreads, carbon monoxide has a tendency to fall into places because it's heavier than air. And when it gets into places like that, now you've got carbon monoxide or potential carbon monoxide poisoning inside the house. Okay, so we always recommend if you see a pool downstairs, you've got to sheathe it with something. You've got to put drywall on it. You've got to put metal on it. You've got to eliminate it if you want. And furthermore, when you see those pull down ladders, what they're using that for is additional storage again.
Right.
And now we go back to structure, and are those trusses really designed to hold that additional weight?
Okay, that's good to know. Kitchen appliances?
You know, we work off of standards of practice,
Right.
okay? And within that standards of practice, technically, the only thing that we're supposed to look at are built-in appliances. So refrigerators, dishwashers, things that's not really built into the house, we don't really look at, okay? However, my report, I look at the dishwasher, I gather serial numbers, I try to let you know how old these appliances are. We operate the microwaves. We look at the refrigerator. I give them guidance on even what the temperature of a refrigerator is supposed to be. You know, less than 40 degrees on the refrigerator, 0 degrees or less on the freezer side. Okay, so we're going to operate the garbage disposal, all the appliances inside the kitchen. Okay,
And obviously the interior and
interior, you know, kind of a blend. You know, you're going to start to see my report. You know, when you're looking at one thing, you're going to involve something else. Okay,
Right.
and again, we're looking at structural components of the interior. I actually consider the windows being part of the interior because they're operable from the interior. So that's where we're looking at windows. We're looking at walls. We're looking at ceilings, stains, anything that the buyer should be aware of. We want to give them as much information as we possibly can.
okay. And next on the list would be my favorite pain in the rear end is plumbing.
Plumbing? Okay.
Plumbing and electrical.
Yeah, that's kind of where you hit it. You know, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. We
Yeah.
call those the MEPs.
Yeah.
Okay. And yeah, plumbing, and that's really confusing to even some home inspectors, believe it or not.
Oh, I don't doubt that at all. Yeah.
You know, we're looking for water pressure. Okay. And there's a big difference between water pressure and water flow. Okay, you can flow a lot of water through a big pipe. Okay, you can flow a lot of pressure through a straw.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a difference that we have to distinguish before we even start looking at the plumbing. Do we have water pressure coming into the house? Okay, do we have water pressure at the sinks? Do we have flow? Okay, because honestly, a little pinhole that's just dripping that you couldn't possibly wash your hands or your hair, it may have a lot of pressure, but we're looking at functional flow and not just pressure. Pressures as it comes in the house, flows through it as it goes through the house.
Yeah.
Okay. We're also looking at functional drainage. We want to run multiple drains at one time and observe the drainage on the sinks, the bathtub, flush the toilet. When you're flushing the toilet, you want to go back to functional flow. Did the water pressure just go way down when you flush the toilet? Are the drains all flowing out, or are they slowly but surely backing up? And if they are, that's an indication there's a problem, and we probably need to recommend getting a plumber out there.
Okay. And then one of my big bugaboos, I guarantee you, if you want to start a fire, all you have to do is let me mess with your electrical system. So.
Well, electrical, kind of like water. You know, you have to look at the functional flow, but you want to look at how the electric flows through the wiring. You need to make sure that the wires are compatible with the breaker size that's being served. Okay. Mm-hmm. You can't put a small wire on a real big breaker because now the wire becomes the fusible link, if you want to call it
Right.
that. So that when they're incorrectly matched, okay, that needs to, you know, throw up the red flags, get the attention of an electrician, and get out there and get that corrected. We're also looking at, you know, the older homes versus the new. Been a lot of changes, okay, and the way I kind of describe that stuff is you can't really take your '65 Mustang and give it all the standards of a brand new car.
Right.
Airbags, alarm systems, you know, all the theft deterrent, those kind of things in an older house. Okay, when you're looking through the electrical system, you're going to have to see or have an idea about the age of the house. Okay, and as the older houses were built, they were kind of built like an older car. You can't make an older house new standards. Okay, you can bring some things up. You can add GFCIs. You can add different breakers. You can add breaker locks, things of that nature. But your system is pretty much what it was at the time it was built. Okay, one of the biggest things that people get concerned about was after the Vietnam War in the late 60s, early 70s, because of all the copper being used up for bullets and things of that nature, everybody went to aluminum wiring.
Oh, I remember those days. Yeah. Yep.
And when they went to aluminum wiring, they had some difficulties that they hadn't quite figured out, like the compatibility of whether you put an aluminum against a piece of copper, and they heat and contract differently. Okay, if they contract and one expands, and then it arcs, now you've got fires. That's why houses were burning, and it did get a really bad rap for a long time. But there are ways to correct that without changing all the wiring.
Right.
Chemical stuff you can put on the connections, certain connections, crimp-on connections you can use, and an electrician would really be the one to talk about, the details of that.
And that's one of the things I want to I know we're not quite through with the list here, but I do know the home inspector's not necessarily going to be the person you want to call to do repairs on these
Absolutely
issues.
not.
So I know we have an AC guy, and we've got an electrician, and we've got a plumber. And I would not ask any of those guys to do my home inspection, but by the same token, I wouldn't want you to come in and work on my air conditioning
Right.
unit. Speaking of air conditioning units, next item on the list is your HVAC system. So
Okay. What we're going to do is we want to try to determine the year. And we know from history that these units are typically 10, 12-year life expectancy. Okay.
especially in Arizona.
Absolutely. Now, does that mean that I never see something that's 18 or maybe 22 years old?
Yeah.
Absolutely. See them all the time. Why are they still running? Luck of the draw.
Yeah.
If I get to some place and it's 16, 18 years old, I'm going to explain it like this. It's working today.
Right.
It's long past its life expectancy. However, for every day that it works in the future is just another blessing.
Speaking of life expectancy, let's drop back to plumbing for just a second. What's the average life expectancy of a water heater?
Well, most of your water heaters are going to last a lifetime of their warranty. And if you look at the water heater, it usually has about a 6-year warranty.
Is that right?
That's right. Okay.
Okay.
Now, what I've also found, though, is that your gas water heaters are going to outlast your electric water heaters. Yes,
Oh,
absolutely.
I didn't know that. I would have thought that was the other way around. Okay.
No. Gas is just a lot more efficient. It heats up quicker. You don't have the same kind of heating elements and stuff with a gas. Okay. But yeah, if you get more than about 6 or 8 years, and again, goes right back to what I said about the air conditioning. Do I find them with that 10, 12, 15 years old? Absolutely. Are they still working? Absolutely. Are they going to continue to work? Maybe.
Maybe, yeah.
Okay. So every day that they do is just a blessing.
Yep.
Okay. So how do I write that up in the report? I tell them it's working today. It's acceptable. Okay. However, monitor it.
Yeah.
Okay. And if it goes out in a month, 2 months, 6 months, we're aware of that.
Right.
We're expecting that.
And most of the manufacturers have got recommended periodic maintenance systems in there. And I run into a lot of homeowners that either they don't know, or they're just too lazy like me, or they don't. We don't, or in my case, I just call a plumber guy and I say, hey, do my annual PMCS on mine. That's preventive maintenance system for service for those of you that are not military guys like I am. So anyway, so we have those guys come in and do the maintenance on them, and I think that goes a long ways to keeping them running as well.
Well, and a lot of homeowners, they don't even understand what type of maintenance needs to be done on some of these. Okay.
Yeah, I know.
Water heaters, for instance, all the water that's delivered to the house always has some fine little granules of sand and grit and deposits just produced in the system itself. Okay. Well, they're all heavier in water, so eventually that settles down to the bottom of the tank. if you don't drain your tank and expunge some of those things once in a while, then you're going to get buildup and corrosion and rot, and really prematurely cause you to have to replace your water heater.
Yeah, good to know. Yeah. Okay. Talk about the roof for a little bit.
Okay. Well, main thing about the roofs is you have to know the telltale signs of a potential problem. And roofs, again, they have a life expectancy. You know, your shingle roof, you know, is going to last you 15, 16, 18 years or so. Anything over that, again, is a blessing. Okay. Tile roofs, tile really doesn't do anything except for shield the underlayment. The underlayment on a tile roof is what goes bad. And where do they go bad? Usually around the eaves. Okay. So we know that if you have a tile roof and you think it's going to last 50 or 100 years or something like that, your tiles may, but the underlayment's going to need to be replaced. We really start looking around the eaves at somewhere, give or take, about 20 years.
Okay.
At about 20 years, we're going to see some repairs needed around the eaves. Then again, your next step is about 30 years, okay? And then you're talking about a whole roof. So again, if I go to a house that's 35 years old, am I going to call the roof good? I'm going to call the roof acceptable because there's no leaks, okay? Is it going to be good for another 10, 12, 15 years? Probably not.
Yeah. Okay. And then finally, on the list was insulation and ventilation. And I know I've got a ventilation issue right now at my house, so, or an insulation issue, I should say. So my AC runs 24/7 when it's 110 plus outside.
Oh,
so
boy.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
rough.
we'll talk about that too.
I know, yeah.
You know, insulation is really, they think that's to help with the heating and cooling, and it does. It
Right.
does, okay? But the other thing that ventilation does is it takes the moisture out of the interior of the house and pushes it to the exterior. For instance, when you take a shower and your mirror's all fogged up and you can write your name and stuff in there, okay, that's moisture that should not be in the house, okay? That fan and that ventilation should take that moisture away. And you typically have ventilation in your bathrooms, your laundry, your kitchen, okay? Your older homes that didn't have electric fans in that, then they're required to have some sort of an operable window, okay? Now the downside about that is if it's summertime out here in Arizona and it's 115 or better degrees, I don't think anybody's going to open a window
Yeah.
to ventilate a room. They're just going to live with it until they realize there's mold buildup or something behind the washing machine. Okay?
Yeah.
In the shower stalls are notorious for mold buildup. Underneath sinks, we look for mold.
Yeah.
Okay. Even though that's not really part of the standards of practice, to me that's an obvious thing. I try to put myself if in the position of the buyer. If I was a buyer, what would I want to know? And is it practical for me to advise them of that?
Right.
Because there's some things it's not practical. How many planes fly over this house, Tom? I have no idea. You know,
Yeah.
Does the neighbors have barking dogs? I have no idea.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not practical. But the nitty gritty about the house, that's where I come in.
Right. So you talk about standards of practice, so let's kind of shift gears here. We kind of ran through the list.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't really talk about pools, and I know that's not something you guys really get involved in. I usually call in for a professional pool guy when I have a pool in front.
Right, and a lot of people do.
Right.
I personally, I do inspect my own pools.
Yeah.
And we check the interior, the pumps. There's some really key things about a pool that need to be looked at.
Okay. And I know, do you guys do termite inspections?
I personally do not. It
Okay.
requires a different license.
Right.
Okay. I work with a termite company that I've used for a number of years now. And prior to that, I used a bunch.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get anybody that would service the whole valley that I service. Okay. But in the last couple of years, I've got a real good termite company. They'll come out, okay, do the inspection. They offer a warranty themselves. So I take the obligation of calling the termite, trying to arrange it at or near the same time that I'm going to be there, okay? And that's how the termite inspection
And that's
is
a
done.
really good thing for those of you that are thinking about buying or selling. One of the problems that we run into as realtors, frequently termite inspections kind of get shoved off to the back end of the burner because people don't really think about them.
Right.
And they think the home inspector is going to catch that problem, and they don't know that there's a different license involved, and they don't know that it's a different company. And we end up getting almost to closing, and all of a sudden I get a call from title, and they're like, "Did you do your termite inspection?" I'm like, "No." So oops. So anyway, now we've got a problem that can potentially cause us to hold up our closing.
Yeah.
So standards of practice, and that was an excellent segue, different license. So let's talk about licensing and credentials, and I know you said you're on a supervisory board of some kind.
I am. So since 2002, a home inspector has been required to have an Arizona state license. It doesn't mean a contractor can't go out and look at things on a house for a potential buyer. They can look at the plumbing, the electric, but if they portray themselves to be a home inspector, they need to be licensed. And they need to be licensed through the state of Arizona, and that is controlled by the BTR, which is the Board of Technical Review. Now, the same people that are on that board also monitor engineers, architects, those type of things. We do not fall under the contractor, Board of Contractors. We fall under the Board of Technical Review.
Okay.
Now, as they're monitoring inspectors and doing what they do, occasionally somebody complains about a home inspector. Probably never had that happen,
Oh,
right?
never. No. Yeah.
But somebody will file a complaint. Okay?
Absolutely, yeah.
The Board of Technical Review, they really don't know home inspections. So what they do is they've formed a committee or an oversight group that will actually take a look at the report, the complaint, put two and two together and try to form an opinion on whether or not the inspector followed the standards of practice.
Okay.
There's only a handful of people that do that. Okay, I being one of them, and it basically takes the report, compares it side by side. Here's the standards of practice. Here's the report. Do these two pieces of paper look the same?
Okay.
If they don't look the same, then I feel pretty sorry for the home inspector.
Okay. So when you went to get your home inspector license, I'm assuming you had to pass a test.
I did.
And what kind of background experience does a person need to have to be able to do that?
So the actual prerequisite to getting a home inspector's license is none. You could bag groceries at a grocery store if you go spend the time, the hours to qualify to take the test.
Yeah.
If you can take the test and complete your 30 parallel inspections, and we can go into parallel inspections on another day.
Yeah.
But as long as you complete that, state of Arizona is going to give you a license. Now that doesn't mean you know anything, okay? But you can have a license.
Right.
Okay. Now, me particularly, I owned a construction business. I've been around real estate going on 30 years or so. I sold real estate. I inspected houses. I worked and built and added things and subtracted things and improved things for years on a house. So I was just writing a little flyer here the other day, and I was adding up my years of experience. I go, man, I've been doing this for over 30 years.
It's about time to retire, isn't it?
You know what? I've tried it twice. I tried it twice, and my wife has kicked me out each time. Says you need to get a job.
Tom and I are very similar in this. I'm working on my fourth retirement right now as we speak, so I kind of relate to that. I knew we were going to go down that road.
You can't retire.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, like she says. So when you're going to get into the system, I would assume, and you can go ahead and tell me what assumptions are good for, because we both know where that goes. But I would assume that if you've been in the trades, you've got some pretty decent background of what you're looking at in at least some of the systems that we talked about, and then you can get trained up on the other ones as you go. So if you've got a mechanical bend in your manual skill levels, I don't even know what I'm trying to say here, but if you've got that mechanical inclination, you're going to do better than somebody that's more of a song and dance man.
Absolutely, and I've seen, for example only, I've seen some very good electrical people try to get into the home inspection side of it, and failed miserably.
Yeah.
Just like really good plumbers, because those trades it's hard to mix. And I've actually, of the opinion as of today, that if I had to train somebody from start to finish, I'd rather take somebody that wasn't in the business and teach them what to look for.
Right.
As an example, I took a guy that had no experience, and it took me about a year and a half before I got him where I felt comfortable, and he's still inspecting houses today.
Yeah. Good, very good. Okay. So, before we shut down, I do this to all my guests, so
Sure.
I'm gonna kind of throw this one at you here. Tell me, in your years of experience as an inspector, what has been the craziest or the worst or the most bizarre, without getting anybody in trouble, stuff that you've seen?
I tell you, if you would have asked me that when I was a year or two into the business, I'd have probably answered it differently than what I'd answer it now. And after 12 or so years in the business, I don't know. I think I've come across I'm still coming across new things. Don't get me wrong, but I think I've seen most everything. That nothing really amazes me.
Uh-huh.
But I have come across a few things over the year that's probably worth mentioning. That's just on the extravagant, out of this world level.
Yeah.
I came across one. I looked behind the refrigerator at the receptacle, and in the plastic housing, there's a little hole drilled into it. There's a metal pipe coming out the receptacle, and that was the water supply line for the
Coming out of the electrical
Coming
box?
out of the electrical.
Oh,
now, we
man.
all know that water and electric doesn't mix.
What was that old Debbie Boone song? You light up my life.
Yes, exactly. And I come across other things that maybe that aren't quite as dangerous as that. But I remember doing a 2-story house, and I went upstairs, and in one of the bedrooms, there's an air conditioner in the window, which is kind of not unusual, but you've got central air, so kind of a red flag, you've got to start watching.
Yeah.
I go to another bedroom. Here's another window unit. He had 3 bedrooms upstairs. Every bedroom had an air conditioner in the window. And I asked him, what's going on with these air conditioners here? Why do you have those? And he said, well, the rooms just don't stay cool. And I said, well, you've got central air. They should. He said, well, they don't. And I've had air conditioning guys out here look at it. He says, I'm the original owner. He says, I've had the builder out here. I said, okay, I'll take a look at it. And I just kind of put it off in the back of my mind, thinking, well, maybe he just likes his rooms really cool, okay? So while I was up in the attic, I noticed something kind of strange. It was on the ducting. There was a transition that should have had another duct going into another room, but it was just open and cooling the attic. And all the rooms had ducting going there, so the only thing that I could actually come up with is maybe when they built the house, they had plans to add another room or another something and just never closed it off. And all these years, the air just been blown in the attic.
So the ducting that was going into the other bedrooms that were not cooling, a lot of that cool air was just going into the attic.
Just going into the attic.
Well, that's convenient.
Yeah, well, your attic was really, I kind of wondered when I got up in the attic, I said, this is really nice. So it makes you want to look around.
That'd
So
be your first clue.
I've seen some funny stuff out there.
Okay, all righty. So I want to hire you to come do a home inspection.
Okay.
So how do I get a hold of you?
623-680-5311. That's my number. Okay. I've got a website, more information, 623inspector.com.
We're going to put that on the scroll so y'all can
Do your number again.
and do your phone number again.
623-680-5311. My website is 623inspector.com. Now, I chose 623 Inspector because I primarily work the west side,
Right.
and that happens to be the prefix for
Well,
them.
it used to be. Anymore, they kind
They kind of blended them in. But at the time I got it, I'm an old guy. I've had it for a while.
We're not going to talk about old guys. Okay. So anyway, so Tom, I think we've pretty much covered stuff. We'll have you back again.
All right.
In a few weeks. And if you have anything, if you'd like, give us a subscribe and a ring the bell or whatever that TikTok, YouTube stuff that they always tell me I'm supposed to say is. We would love to have you join us. We do a lot of these real estate oriented type of shows with titles and home inspectors and home warranty people and things like that. So just subscribe and save, as they say in the business. And I guess we're done here, are we not? Yes, no?
I think
All
we're
right.
done. I'm
All
pretty
right,
happy.
well, thank you, sir.
All right,
I
thank you.
appreciate you coming by.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem.
Look forward to seeing you out there in the field.
Yep, have a good one.
Thank you.
Okay, folks,